welcome back to another episode of the Lonely Liberal Podcast. I am your host, Nick Zankin, and I'm so happy to have you on this lovely Sunday. We got a great show for you today. Rick and I are going to go through all of the news of this last week. We got a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's get to it. Alrighty, and we are back with Rick. Rick, what is up, dude?
Hey, not much. Great to be back. Just catching up on another week of Epstein files not being released. How's it going with you?
I know, right? And also, I've noticed just there, you hey, I hey, because I start every show with a hey. That is a thing that you and I have been doing forever. Do you think other people hey as much as we hey?
I don't know. A few of our other friends do it, but I think I don't know. I've been doing it forever, though.
Totally. Like, it's second nature. I don't even think about it. Like, that's just, I text hey. Is like,
Hey.
Yeah, it's built into my, like,
Say it like 5 times a day.
Seriously. So, like, I wonder if they think we're, like, in on a bit because you always start off with hey, and I start off with hey every time. But I think it's just a socialized behavior. It's like when the, killer whales learn to flip the boats in Portugal. It's, it's a pod mindset that we all kind of say, hey.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. So much Epstein this week. It's back. We had a couple of weeks off of Epstein. I feel like because they all went on recess and they hid for a couple of weeks, they're back. So I guess it's not surprising that Epstein's back in the news.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know if any progress has been made.
No, it seems completely, if anything, it got worse, maybe.
Yeah, but it's continuing to dominate the headlines.
Yeah, so the first news story, right, was the House Oversight Committee released this 33,000 pages of Epstein-related records and stuff like that. And the way I found out about this was on Instagram, which is always a great source. And it was Epstein files released, blah, blah, blah. Even 60 Minutes was saying like that. So at first I was excited. I was like, oh, look at that. And then it turns out that it was basically all the documents that had already been made public, I guess. So it's really not that interesting. But it was kind of a big load of like kind of a volume play, a bunch of documents. But yeah, nothing really has come out of it, I guess, from any of the journalists who actually have looked through them pretty carefully.
Yeah, and I think this is like the second time they've done this in the past month or two, where they compile files that were already previously released and then make it like it's a new release. When journalists that have been covering it closely obviously know that they've seen these documents before, like the release from a couple days ago was a lot of things from the 2005 case as well as the 2017 case with Epstein that were just already released in other proceedings. So there was no, like you would think you hear 33,000 pages of court documents released and you hear like, wow, there must be a lot of lists in there, right? There's got to be
that was my first thought.
At least one Epstein list on those 33,000 pages. But no, nothing really significant, no additional named famous people involved or anything like that. It's really everything we already do.
Yeah, and it just shows you that it's not really a good faith effort to release anything. And that became really interesting this week because the Epstein victims came to Capitol Hill. It was they protested. Reps Massey and Khanna were pushing to basically force a floor vote to release the full thing, which is so funny because it's so funny how there's this recognition that there's more files that they're hiding. It's like the worst kept secret that these are all there is. You know what I mean? Like they keep pretending here's the final file dump. And then everyone goes, no, like really, can you release the real ones? And they're like, no, you know what I mean? It's so funny how quickly that they're trying to say that there are no other files goes away. You know what I mean? One pushback and they admit, oh, well, yeah, we're not releasing all of them. So yeah, it was a pretty big deal. All the victims came, they were, protesting. Mike Johnson, he came and met with them. And I mean, they were furious, as they should be, mainly because Trump keeps calling it a hoax, right? The whole Epstein thing is a Democratic hoax. So I know people will say, oh no, he's calling the Democrats' use of the files as a hoax, but that's not what a hoax means. So I don't know. It was pretty powerful though to see all the victims there at Capitol Hill.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to see at least the motion to release the rest of the files has at least some bipartisan support, although very, very little. Like you said, Thomas Massey is one of the sponsors of that petition to force the release of the files, along with Ro Khanna. But as of now, Massey only has the support of 4 other Republicans in the House out of, 220. Yeah, so he's still looking to get basically 4 more, assuming all the Democrats agree with the petition to release the files, you would still need 4 more Republicans to get past the majority threshold to even force a vote on the House floor about it. So I guess we'll see. Mike Johnson called that petition to release the files moot and superfluous after the recent release, the 33,000 release.
The nothing
right.
burger. Yeah.
So I don't think Mike Johnson really cares about it. I'm sure he's pissed that this has become the number one issue.
No, for sure. And even worse, right? The White House official this week told reporters that any GOP signature to do what you just said, to petition this, would be viewed as a very hostile act towards the administration. Now, I asked the listeners at home, why would releasing the files be a hostile act towards the administration if no one in the administration was in the files, right? I mean, isn't that an admission of guilt to some extent? I mean, am I being dramatic?
No, I agree, of course. And I think the reality is that Trump is included so much throughout the files that's why they're not releasing it. I don't know if there's any smoking gun, let's say multiple new victims that have come forward directly accusing Trump of assaulting them on Epstein's island, something that clear. But just the reality of him appearing many, many times throughout the documents is enough for them to be very concerned about it, obviously. So I don't know. We'll see if Trump can kind of escape this. But even about a month ago, when we talked about it on the podcast, we were like, this really is blowing up to the number one issue. And it really has. You don't see that many people discussing the tariffs or discussing the military parade in China.
It's crazy. And to some degree, it makes some sense, right? It's obviously, horrible, horrible thing. Right? It's like when child sex trafficking is horrible as it gets. It is interesting, I guess. I don't think that, like Trump says, like, oh, if they had anything, Biden would have released it. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily true because we've talked about in the past that assumes that Biden is as petty as Trump is. I do think, though, it is weird that it wasn't more discussed. I mean, it was discussed under Biden, right? The original leaks of the list, the flight logs and stuff like that did come out. I think, people have a short-term memory and forget how much of the information actually did come out under the Biden administration. But I do think that I somewhat see an average person listening, right, who doesn't follow this very closely. I could see why they would be like, the Democrats are using this as political. They don't give a crap about the victims. If they did, why haven't they been throwing a temper tantrum before? I do understand that kind of point of view. That being said, that doesn't take away from the fact that the sitting president may be is associated to some extent with Jeff Epstein and stuff like that. So maybe that's why it's coming up. But what do you think about that? Do you think this effort feels genuine from the Democrats, or do you think that it's just so obviously a political ploy and because it's such a horrible, horrible association, that's what they're just going to run with?
It's a great question. I think it feels genuine enough for me to support what they're doing and continuing to go after the files.
Me too. Yeah.
Like deep down, I am a cynical bastard. So of course, like deep down, I believe this is all politically motivated. And didn't Epstein die during term 1, right? Wasn't it?
2019.
Yeah. So he didn't even die during Biden. So really the pressure from anybody, but especially the Democrats, should have been coming throughout the 2016 election when everyone knew Epstein was already a sex trafficker.
100%.
And then it should have dramatically increased under his mysterious death, whereas Democrats didn't really talk about it. And what that did was it allowed the internet to make all of these theories about how all of the elites in both parties are coming together to suppress this because they're all pedophiles, et cetera, et cetera. But the pressure should have been on since 2016, and it should have went way up in 2019, and it just didn't. The pressure really wasn't on about this until, 2 or 3 months ago. In that sense, it does seem politically motivated, and the sense that, you can tell Democrats are just running with it so hard. They're talking about it more than they talk about ICE raids, tariffs, or any of the other terrible things Trump is doing. But at the same time, they're right, so
exactly.
What can you do?
Yeah, I mean, maybe... I think the most optimistic way to look at it, like giving them the most slack, would be they didn't think Trump would ever become president again after January 6th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they were like, this is just, we're going to handle this like a normal court case slowly in the background. And then when he becomes president again, it all of a sudden becomes a much more prioritized topic because the sitting president being associated with Jeff Epstein is way more of a big deal, you know what I mean, than a non-sitting, you know what I mean? It's why when people compare Clinton and they go, well, would you be mad about Clinton? Of course I wouldn't be mad. Throw Clinton in jail if he's, you know what I mean? Like a former president being associated with Jeff Epstein is a huge deal, but it's still not as big of a deal as the acting president. So I feel like that's like the most favorable way to look at it, but it is interesting. And, the Democrats definitely do have a genuineness issue, I think, to some
Yeah.
extent.
And I looked this up recently because I was wondering. So some of the listeners may know, but Epstein first came into his big portion of his money and his net worth through his friendship with Les Wexner, who ran Abercrombie and Fitch and Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. He's this billionaire guy. And Wexner hired Epstein in the 80s to manage his money, which was unusual because Epstein had no experience doing that at the time. And to manage his portfolio. And, Epstein's argument or story of what happened is that he was so successful managing his money, he ended up getting other clients to manage their money. But he was very close with Wexner. Some have theorized potentially Wexner had romantic feelings for Epstein. But Epstein stayed at his house, ran his company out of Wexner's various homes. So he's kind of I would say the biggest figure in the Epstein case after Epstein and Maxwell. He 100% knew what Epstein was doing. I was shocked to learn he's still alive. I assumed he had died.
He was dead. Yeah, exactly.
Because he was old a long time ago. He's 87. He's still alive. And I couldn't believe that because I feel like, why aren't they trying to subpoena him or talk to him? I feel like he is one of the few people alive that really actually probably knows the full extent of Epstein's crimes. So I think they should be trying to get him to talk to Congress, but I don't really know why that hasn't been tried yet.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I don't know. I don't know anything about him, Maybe he's senile, That's a good question. Something to keep an eye on. And I mean, also, can they get there has to be other people that we know worked with him and whatnot to some degree, right? You don't just have $1 billion and not have a huge staff network and stuff like that. So there just has to be more people who know more than we know. You know what I'm saying? Like billionaires just have huge networks no matter what, even more secluded, reclusive guys like Epstein. So I don't know. And it's interesting, this whole thing, because it's such a perfect thing for there to be a conspiracy theory around, because not only you have the powerful people involved, you have the horrible crime involved, but you have so much mystery, right? And people's actions for why they're doing what they're doing and parsing through the solution don't seem to line up with how a rational person would try to solve this mystery. So more and more they act weird, and it adds to this conspiracy fire. So one of the things, right, that I thought was really, really interesting that came out this week that I haven't seen on the news really at all. So Dick Durbin, the senator, he's been saying for a while now that, the FBI is, forking through all the Epstein files and redacting Trump. They're working 24/7 to do that, yada, yada, yada. And, most people have just been like, oh, this guy's just paranoid and stuff like that. Or it hasn't really gotten a lot of attention. However, and I'm going to play a clip for you. So the acting deputy chief of the Department of Justice, Joseph Schnitt, was secretly recorded in a video this week saying something pretty alarming. Did you see this video, Rick?
No, I did not.
So I'm going to play I got a clip from it from ABC. Thank you, ABC. So if you hear some dramatic music in the background, that's ABC's doing. And this is a hidden camera from a social outing that he was at. So this is the acting deputy chief of Joseph Schnitt talking about the Epstein files. Here we go.
But those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files.
I think they visited that Maxwell person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's As she's a convicted sex offender, they're offering her something to keep her mouth shut.
That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, what do you say about that? I mean, what are we even talking about here, right? I mean, that's a pretty serious claim.
Yeah, for real. And I can't tell, is he saying I was part of that doing? Is he supportive of what he's talking about?
Or is he just speculating on what would happen? But if he's the acting deputy chief of the Department of Justice, you'd think he would be in the know, right?
Right. Although I don't know if the woman he's talking to is actually clueless or if she's playing dumb to get more information out of him, which would be genius. Because I like how she's like, what about like that Maxwell girl? Is she involved? It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's involved.
Well, listen to this. Listen to this.
blatant backtracking on promises of transparency.
And what do you do for work again?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years.
What do you do again? Wait, so you've been working there how long? Sounds
Yeah.
like such a bad spy, but it worked, you know? Like, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah,
Like-
that's crazy, but it backs up exactly what Durbin was saying about, the thousands of FBI and DOJ employees that were directed to flag any mention of Trump when they were going through the files or something. So it does seem like that's true. But yeah, if anything, it raises questions about what other high-profile Republicans are in the Epstein files.
Because he said all other Republicans. Yeah. Well, and what's so interesting about it is, again, why isn't this all over the news? If I'm a Democrat and I'm looking for a smoking gun type event, this is a pretty big story, right? I mean, yeah, so the DOJ, since this has come out, have publicly rejected his claim. No duh. But I mean, the deputy chief saying this, I feel like that is enough to get him to subpoena him, right? Don't you get him now out? I don't know. Like, I just feel like there should be a follow-up in some sort of conversation with this guy.
Of course. Yeah. You need more about the political motivations behind it. And I mean, he should at least resign or get fired, you would think. But he should also be asked on the House floor to go into detail.
Well, if they fire him immediately, doesn't that mean that, wouldn't that be like, oh, he's guilty? He's right? Why would they get mad at him?
Right.
Something is up with this. But yeah, this original post was from O'Keefe Media Group. They published this hidden camera video. I encourage people to watch it because he's just like at a barbecue talking to someone while he's flipping burgers. It's an interesting clip, but one that makes me wonder, A, if they will ever release these other files, and B, if they do, can we even trust them if they really are just going to redact everything Trump? Is it kind of like the Maxwell testimony? Like, are we going to be able to take it seriously now because we know they're not potentially acting in good faith?
Right. Yeah, and every new release so far has been, a nothing burger. There's always so much hype around these. Nothing significant in the story, in my opinion, has really come out since 2020.
Totally. I completely agree with you. It's been basically nothing. So it's just been random regurgitated gobbledygook. So I just feel like, how would this guy say something like this if he had no idea? I don't know. It freaks me out. It makes me wondering about, I don't like this idea of not being able to trust government sources, even if they're Republican or in a Republican administration. We should just be able to trust government sources regardless, because once we can't do that, then we're all in a conspiracy theory, Now this all is a conspiracy theory, and I want to move away from that as much as possible, but I don't know what to believe anymore when you hear a pretty senior official at the DOJ saying something like this.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this is small talk at a barbecue with a woman he doesn't know.
Gee, maybe
he's like bragging about covering up a sex trafficking investigation.
It's so weird. And so lastly on this Epstein stuff, so we were talking about earlier, Mike Johnson met with the victims and, he was asked about it. He said it was moot and in that rambling. So in that moment when he was talking to the reporters about it, he mentioned that Trump was an FBI informant actually to help the Epstein case, which may seem like, oh, these liberals are taking him out of context. There's no way he said that Trump was an FBI informant for the Epstein case. Well, we're playing another clip, Rick. I'm going to play the clip, and I want to let the listeners at home judge if we're taking this out of context.
It comes
He is
across as
horrified.
calling the whole thing a hoax.
It's been misrepresented. He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have.
Isn't that's not a misquote?
Yeah, pretty direct.
I mean, thoughts? What do you think about that?
I mean, an FBI informant means much more than when somebody got convicted of sex trafficking. Investigators questioned all of his friends. And what if his friends was Trump?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think actually happened. I think Johnson's twisting that to be like, to make it seem like Trump approached the FBI with information out of goodwill or something like that. So obviously he wasn't an informant. I do believe that as part of the Epstein investigation, the FBI may have interviewed Trump because they were such good friends.
Totally,
right?
because they're best buddies. And
Right.
he was probably like, what happened? And we also know that the thing he says before that, which is, oh, he kicked him out of the club because he learned about how creepy he was. Trump just a few weeks ago said he kicked him out because he stole help, right? He stole a staff member. So
Right.
we know Mike Johnson's full of it there. But I mean, how can these guys say stuff like this with a straight face? You know what I mean? Like, Trump was an FBI informant. That's the direct quote.
Yeah, that should be such a massive reveal, but it's just so obviously not true that nobody is even asking about it.
Or, like, how much do you think there's any percent chance? Do you think there's any chance at all it could be true? Is there a 1% chance that actually Trump was an FBI informant and that's why he hasn't been able? I'm sure there's some conservative podcast right now saying, oh my God, Freudian slip of the week. Trump's actually was working with the FBI, and that's why he hasn't been able to leak the files because he's an undercover agent. Or something. I'm sure of it that that's a narrative somewhere. You don't think?
Yeah, it probably is. No, I think 0% chance it's true. I just think he was
Same.
interviewed as part of the investigation because they were best buddies. That does not mean you're an FBI informant, though.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know. I just thought that was ridiculous. It's funny. What are they going to do now? Oh, what do you think Trump liked Epstein? You know, Trump was actually, working as a cop trying
Right.
to take Epstein down. Trump was actually a defense attorney for the victims. Like they're just going to say, like, how
Trump
much
was
more?
volunteering in a soup kitchen during all of this.
He was speaking at an elementary school. But no, I don't know. It's just so stupid. So that's it for the Epstein, but we're going to our other, creep of the week related to Epstein and his, unfortunately no dinosaur bone hunting this week. RFK, so he had a pretty intense Senate hearing this week, and basically everyone grilled him all week about the CDC turmoil, the firings, the vaccine policy changes. My least favorite senator, Bill Cassidy, kind of got him with a gotcha question saying, oh, don't you think Trump should have won a Nobel for Operation Warp Speed? And then RFK went, yep. And then he said, well, why would he have won a Nobel if vaccines didn't work when that was the point of Warp Speed? And then it kind of got him in a jumble. But basically the whole thing was him getting yelled at for a few hours. And I think that's just going to be the end of it. I don't know. What did you think, Rick?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are more calls for him to resign than there's ever been before, like we talked about last week. And I think that's good. There needs to be united pressure calling on him to resign. And now is definitely the time to do that. But yeah, I don't know if anything really will change. I mean, he made a bunch of headlines for kind of giving a spoiler to his autism report that's coming out soon, saying he gave a little bit of a spoiler saying we found Tylenol use by pregnant mothers could potentially be linked to autism. I don't know. Well, that report is going to be dumber than any of us can expect. I have a feeling.
I know. And what's so funny about it is that he can't win here, right? In the sense that if in that report, he says vaccines cause autism, I mean, I feel like that will be the final straw. It's just so known to not be true. It's just so 100% not true. But if he doesn't include it, then, he was wrong. It's a public admission of, guilt to some extent. So this report is just going to be so ridiculous. So it seems they're going after Tylenol, which, I mean, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that seems ridiculous. It's funny, though. I wish the senators, and especially the Democratic senators, could do something other than just yell at him, because I don't know technically what they could do. Maybe you're right. Maybe every one of them should have said, you must resign, like in kind of a planned, communication effort, because I don't think he cares about getting yelled at, because if so, he wouldn't be the person that he is. You know what I mean? I kind of wish there was some more coordinated. Every single one of them went with, you must resign the entire time, including some of the Republicans.
Yeah, definitely. His whole support base is like that conspiracy mind. It's not necessarily hurting him amongst his most ardent supporters because they believe that all of the elites are united against RFK and his goal to make America healthy again. So seeing Congress all yell at him, I don't know if that is helpful to change people's minds. Another thing he said was potentially low levels of folate by expectant mothers could be leading to autism, which is kind of ridiculous because that's the number one vitamin for expectant mothers to take is folic acid or folate already, because it is linked to various defects, birth defects. So that's not any new revelation that pregnant women should take folate.
Dude,
but that might be part of his thing.
It's just like, oh man, if we actually were all just chewing grapefruit seeds and, sunning our balls, we'd all be living to 200. It's just, again, if he knows the fountain of youth, why hasn't he taken it yet? Because he looks like an ogre. And he's not healthy. So I don't know. At one point during the Senate hearing, he's like, I know what a healthy person looks like. And then he pointed to himself. I was just like, bro, you are not what a healthy person looks like. I mean, you look like a speaking tumor. I don't know. Looks like freaking like a monster. He's a monster. I don't know. What's interesting, too, is, so they were speaking to Trump about this week, and he's very pro-vaccine, especially because of how much he's proud of Operation Warp Speed, So it's funny. He was on record this week saying vaccines work. We need vaccines and stuff like that. So this is something they really don't agree with. So in some ways, I do feel like maybe there's a path to getting RFK to resign, because that kind of poking at Operation Warp Speed and Trump's ego may be just enough to get enough Republicans to kick him out. Because I really don't think the majority of Americans are anti-vaccine to the point of RFK. They might be suspicious that the COVID vaccine was rushed or something like that. But I don't think most Americans are like, we need to get rid of all vaccines in the way that RFK kind of associates them with. And especially the cutting of the it's like, I feel like most people wouldn't actually want that.
Yeah, true. It's just kind of sad that you have to, massage the ego of a wannabe dictator to even hope that RFK gets canned. But it's not a bad approach. The Republicans during the RFK hearing were all taking that approach. It's the
best idea, right? It's the most easy gotcha to get both Trump to like you and to attack RFK.
Right. And some of the Republicans, too, went after RFK for firing Monterez, the CDC head last month, who only lasted 3 weeks in the job. Tom Tillis said, I don't see how you can go over 4 weeks from she's a public health expert with unimpeachable scientific credentials, a longtime champion of MAHA values, caring and compassionate, and a brilliant microbiologist, and 4 weeks later fire her. So quoting RFK to himself.
Good point.
RFK's telling of the story says, I told her that she had to resign because I asked her, are you a trustworthy person? And she said no. That is the dumbest excuse I've ever heard.
He definitely said, the actual quote was definitely, can I trust you to do whatever I want? And
right,
she said,
of course.
No. And then he went, go fuck yourself. That's obviously what happened. Not, are you a trustworthy person? It's, can I trust you to do what I want? Obviously.
Right.
Like, what is he thinking about? And it's just, I don't know. It's weird. And honestly, I wanted to ask you about this because Mitch McConnell said something this week that was like, oh, this is the most dangerous period of time for the U.S. since World War II, kind of going after the Trump administration. You have Tillis, you have Joni Ernst now, the senator from Iowa, resigning. And it's this classic thing that Republicans do. And honestly, Biden did this too at the end of his term, so I'm not totally absolving him of his sins. They resign and then they start being honest. And it's just like, what is wrong with them? You know what I mean? Where is this energy? Why is Mitch McConnell doing this now? Why is Tillis now deciding to have a spine? I know why, because he's leaving. But like, I just don't understand how these guys sleep at night knowing that they're actively promoting views that they don't seem to actually have.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's an argument that Mitch McConnell has done more damage to the country than Trump, because
Yeah.
in some senses, you're always going to have wannabe authoritarian people that are trying to rise through the party. Like that happens in every country throughout history. But McConnell was really the establishment figure that enabled Trump the most, by far, and had the most power. He is massively to blame. What you just said, it reminds me of John Boehner, the Speaker of the House during Obama's first few years, who blocked every single thing Obama did just to ruin his legacy. And then the Tea Party hate got too strong and he resigned, and then gave a bunch of interviews being like, the Republican Party has lost their mind. They're out of control. Yep. And it's like, then why did you just, use them to put yourself in the most powerful position that you could? Yeah, Mitch McConnell, there's no sympathy for him.
No, and Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan, exactly the same. Yeah,
they're pathetic, and I just don't understand that. Like, they're just so pathetic. They're just a terrible bunch, and I think people need to remember these moments of when they resign and how they do this, because that's the moment. And I remember when Biden, we talked about this on the show before for sure, but when he, one of his last months of being president, he did a press conference and he was just like, by the way, the big companies run everything. We've actually have no say in what goes on, and it's going to get worse with time. And we're just like, dude, you've been president for 4 years. Why didn't you do anything about that? Like, what the fuck? And it's kind of the same thing. And it's worse though, because it's just the numbers of people. But this vaccine stuff, so this CDC stuff is scary because I don't know if you listened to it yet, but I had Jesse on the show Wednesday, and we talked about his top 6 most underappreciated moments of American history, or underrated moments. And we were talking about the Bill of Rights a lot and stuff like that, and it was interesting. And we were talking about the 10th Amendment, right? Which is basically that everything not in the Constitution is up to the states. And that's really relevant nowadays because following the CDC is not something that's in the Constitution, right? Nothing about medical policy is. So since all of this drama, we've been hearing these states starting to create their own kind of medical alliances, you could say. So California, Oregon, and Washington have announced something called the West Coast Health Alliance, which is going to potentially issue joint vaccine recommendations that may depart from federal guidance because they're basically saying the CDC can't be trusted anymore. Northeastern states have signaled that they may do the same. But at the same time, we've seen Florida this week actually pass a rule saying there will be no vaccine mandates in Florida. So this is pretty terrifying. And it seems like what this is trending towards is, medical decisions being made at the state level, similarly to how education systems are made at the state level. But the difference is obviously is if someone gets sick, they can travel. And if you go to school somewhere, you only go to school at one place. But what do you think about all this?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if Democrats overall become more passionate about states' rights, because that's kind of been more of a Republican talking point the past few decades.
Totally.
Whereas now you're seeing, like you said, those Northeast states get together and make their own vaccine recommendations. The issue, though, with healthcare is our system is so bloated in the United States, and it's such a mess between national, state, and local, and between private and public mix, that it's really tough. Like, unless you drastically cut Medicare and Medicaid and then gave all of that money back to the states in the right proportions, which would be very difficult to do and probably cause a lot of harm in the short term. Unless you did something like that, a lot of these things still need to be at the federal level. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, because right now the current practice is basically every doctor just does what the CDC guidelines are, right? And the reason why RFK removing the COVID vaccine recommendation was such a big deal is because health insurance companies, they cover basically whatever is recommended by the CDC. So it's not that you can't get the vaccine. It's just they're gonna remove coverage because everyone uses CDC guidelines for literally everything. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the double-edged swords of state rights in general, right? When you have a good administration that does stuff that you want a strong federal government to be able to override states that don't do things correctly, i.e., gay rights, i.e., whatever, immigration, education, health, all that stuff, right? Environmental ruling and stuff like that. But then on the flip, what happens if you have a CDC promoting nonsense, right? And I guess in the past, the CDC seemed to be so separate from political stuff. Like, you talk about this all the time, man. You always say things that used to just not be, something that could get polarized, like security details or stuff like that. This is one of the things no one used to touch medicine because, medicine is so important to everyone and it is a national topic, Someone getting sick with measles in Texas can infect people from all over the country and so forth and so on. So I don't know. We've never seen the CDC get weaponized and or gutted to such an extent, at least in my knowledge. So I don't know. It's really, really complicated what to do with the state rights stuff because there's stuff like environmental stuff, like equality, like human rights, and then stuff like this, health rights that seem they should be universal, but they aren't in the Constitution. And in the 10th Amendment does say if it isn't in the Constitution, it's up to the states. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't like this Pandora's box, though. I don't like this idea that you have to live in a certain state to have base level modern treatment,
Right, of course. And with reproductive rights, we're obviously heading this way, where it's like, if you even want access to reproductive rights, you have to move to a blue state.
And what if they take gay marriage away or something like that, Or what about if they vaccines don't become covered, so then it all becomes state insurance policies, and then what happens if, environment, like you have bad air in Texas and good air in you know what I mean? Like this, it just seems like a way to further divide us as a country, but at the same time, we, especially because we're in Massachusetts, we benefit from state rights, when you have a Trump administration like this. It just shouldn't be such an extreme swing of the pendulum. But again, I don't know.
Yeah, the worse Trump gets, the more it makes me sympathetic to the states' rights arguments, because I certainly trust the Massachusetts government more than I trust the Trump administration on pretty much any single issue.
Yeah, and that's crazy, though. That's never been the case.
Right. And one thing you've talked about a lot on episodes a while back is how this myth about Democrat states are welfare states that take money when they actually give more money to the federal government than take away, especially Massachusetts. But you hear Newsom talking about this in California a lot, too. And when you hear stuff like that, it does hit you at an emotional level. And it's like, wait a second. So my tax money is going to ICE when if we had more states' rights, it could be going towards improving Massachusetts' healthcare and education systems. You know what I mean? And
totally.
That really makes me want to be a big states' rights person. But we also have to remember we are a country, and being part of a country, we have to have some responsibility for the least fortunate people in other states. It can't just be every state for themselves.
I said this with Jesse when we were talking about Newt Gingrich, Rick, who I know you absolutely despise.
Love him.
One of Jesse's things was one of the most underrated moments for Jesse was the rise of Newt Gingrich and the effect he's had on the,
of course.
country. Yeah, and I thought it was a great pick. But anyway, we were talking about this and we were talking about, bipartisan, how Republicans just are never bipartisan and should Democrats drop the bipartisan act. And the moment I remember very well, because it's recent and it seems very symbolic of everything right now, is, when Joe Biden passed the IRA, most of the money that the IRA was going to give was to red states because that's, where manufacturing takes place, where the infrastructure needs are the biggest. A reporter, this is glued in my memory, asked Biden, they said, why are you giving so much money to the red states when they hate you so much, basically? And he just said, because they need it. There was that moment of humanity, you know what I mean, in Biden's eyes and this kind of bipartisan eyes. And then what happened? Trump took over and they got rid of the IRA immediately. They hurt their own states out of partisan politics. And I kind of feel like that was the modern death of bipartisanship. You know what I mean, at the federal level. It almost feels like we're having this shift. I mean, I guess if I don't know. I mean, so many things are being weaponized in a way that we've never even thought about, The National Guard being one, right? So we were going to talk about this now. He keeps talking about sending it to Chicago. The governors are freaking out and stuff like that. And we've never seen the federal government be so crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I guess like Republicans listening right now will be like, this is akin to them making me have to regulate pollution in my thing. Like, who are you to tell me what I should be teaching in my schools? And who are you to tell me to, make sure these clean water standards and blah, blah, blah. If I want to drink it, I can drink it. Maybe that's right. You would think these universal things aren't affect that because, again, if pollution happens in Tennessee, that doesn't only affect Tennessee. But I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. I feel like we need to chew on this more as time goes on. This might be a theme, Rick? Like this flipping of states' rights.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think Democrats should talk about it to the extent of, the revenue side of things and the fact that Democratic states aren't just welfare states that take money and they're actually really good for business. Obviously, Massachusetts has one of the best economies. So I do think that's a good
California
point.
is the fourth biggest economy in the entire world.
Yeah.
That's just true.
But the fear of going too far in that direction is saying, okay, we're not even going to bother fighting making abortion illegal in Texas because it's a lost cause. And if you live in Texas, you should just move to a blue state. Hopefully we don't keep heading in that direction, but it does kind of seem like that could happen.
I really hope we do. It sucks how divided this country is. It really sucks because obviously this country works best when we're all one beating drum, right? Then that's when the U.S. really shines, is when we're a united front. So yeah, it's just it's a real bummer that this is kind of what's it's heading towards. And yeah, I want to talk about this National Guard stuff a little bit more. I mean, it's been crazy. Trump often posts crazy shit on Truth Social, like with weird AI shit. That's becoming almost like a non-story. He did another one this week of him saying like, love the smell of deportations in the morning, and then get ready Chicago. And it got a lot of the governor of Illinois is freaking out. They're actively, so a report came out saying they're actively anticipating the National Guard to come in without them wanting to. They're setting up that's going to happen. It just feels like only a matter of time. I don't want to be alarmist, but it feels like that's just going to happen any day now. I don't know. What do you think?
It does feel like that, but hopefully they don't have clear orders and they end up spending their days gardening in the fall sunlight.
Enjoying a good Chicago fall. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, Boston is beautiful this time of the year. Hopefully, though, because I am concerned about it, but I guess if we'll see what they end up doing. I'm more concerned about ICE at the moment in terms of their actual actions and the lack of due process. It's really coming out of ICE and with help from the FBI and local police. I don't think they've been using the National Guard in that right-wing political round everyone up that could be a criminal or undocumented sort of way. But there's obviously the potential for that, which is very scary. And there's the potential for him to send in other branches of the military, which he's threatened to do, not just the National Guard, which would be another escalation step.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think ICE is actually doing more action and just in general. So that's why they're more. You're right. That's a good point. I do think, though, there is just something about the visual of just military men walking the streets of cities that just creeps you out, right?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, Hegseth this week, and Trump signed an order, so this is a thing. So there is no more Department of Defense. It's now called the Department of War now. That's the new branding. Hegseth, went on a monologue how they're going to be like killing machines and there's no more defense, only offense. We're going to make, killers out there. I couldn't stop thinking about them just gardening in D.C. What you were talking about. Irony of that speech with now the troops laying mulch down, planting flowers and stuff like that. It's what a bizarro world we live in. They don't actually do anything. They're just calling themselves the badasses and just beating their chest over and over again.
Yeah, they have paint samples from Lowe's and they're like, should we go with the green? Is that what the National Guard is actually doing?
So weird. And it's funny. So this, like you mentioned it earlier, China had an absolutely massive military parade this week. It was ginormous. They really were showing off how giant their army is. It's big. What was really, really interesting about it was that both Putin and Kim Jong-un were in attendance of the parade. It's the first time they've all been together in public, which is pretty interesting. But it was obviously this big show of force. China has been wanting to become more of a player in the arms dealings. They want to start selling weapons, basically. I think that's a big part of it, but also they're showing off. I find it spooky that they're hanging out together like this. I mean, Trump said he was sad that he wasn't invited, basically, which I laughed at because I was like, okay, what a crowd that you want to be a part of. But it does make you worry that, like, what's going on. And on top of that, Macron in France, the prime minister of France, or the president of France, rather, he sent out an order to all French hospitals to be prepared for war in 2026, which I don't love that either. So yeah, it's interesting. You have this giant military parade in China, you have the Europe freaking out, and then what do you have on our side? We have the National Guard planting tulips and Pete Hegseth grunting in the Oval Office.
Right. Yeah, it makes Trump's birthday parade from a couple months ago look even more sad than it was. Like, talk about a lame party that was. That was a disaster.
The creaking tanks. And it's like, obviously the U.S. military is the strongest in the world. We know that. But I don't love this idea of them really uniting and holding hands, all these dictators and authoritarian leaders. It's just...
No, it's bad. And, they're allied by mainly their hatred of the West. Xi Jinping said to reporters, China and North Korea are good neighbors, good friends, and good comrades who share a common destiny.
Great.
Russia and North Korea are obviously two of the most sanctioned countries in the world right now, and they're united because North Korea basically relies on China for everything. Like, that administration would not be in power still if it wasn't for China. They're always asking China for more access to food because their population is perpetually starving. And then North Korea and Russia have become increasingly close in recent years because North Korea has sent troops to fight Ukraine beside the Russian military. And South Korea's intelligence agency this week actually said that of the 15,000 troops North Korea has sent, 1,000 have already been killed.
Whoa.
That's a lot. For context, U.S. troops in the war in Iraq had something like 4,000 deaths, I think, over 10 years. And this is 2,000 in 2 years for, helping Russia take Ukrainian territory that has nothing at all to do with North Korean self-defense. So that is pretty crazy, but it kind of is a window into why these three are so allied right now.
Yeah, and you didn't see China send troops either to Ukraine, though. So that was interesting, too. So that kind of showed some sign like, okay, if China isn't going to send troops to Ukraine for Russia, then when would they ever do it, right? That, like, if not now, then when, I guess? Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if ever Trump realizes that Putin will just never be his actual friend. You know what I mean? Because there's no way your actual friend is, clinking champagne glasses with China, as they do their biggest military parade of all time. You know what I mean? I wonder if he ever clicks in his brain. That's the other team. I should start being friends with the guys on my own team and not the other team, Yeah. He's so committed to being friends with the people who don't like us. It's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. So this week too, and speaking about relying on the government data, so this is now going to be the last job report data we probably get with the old BLS, so not the EJ Antoli group, so the Heritage Foundation guys group. So I don't know what to believe anymore, if the jobs reports going forward are going to be trustworthy, because I don't know what's going to happen. It came out for August. The U.S. added 22,000 non-farm jobs. That sounds like a lot to maybe most people. It's actually pretty significantly lower than what was anticipated. So there's always projections, and then they actually come out with a number, and then usually they get revised down. Sometimes they get revised up, but they often get revised down. They're already anticipated. So, for example, June was revised down 13,000. July was revised down. It depends on the month, but it's not weird for that to happen. I wouldn't call adding 22,000 jobs a disaster, but I do think it's enough for me to justify looking at that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
It's a theme song of the administration right there.
Exactly. Job reports went low. Rick with the weather. No, but I mean, I don't know, dude. It's interesting. Like I said, this may be the last job report we get that isn't sus. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope that's not the case, but obviously continued uncertainty about tariffs is probably the biggest factor here in all of this. That has generally slowed economic growth. Like you said, like the unemployment rate is still considered healthy. 4.3 is not considered bad, but the issue is just that the rate of growth of jobs is very, very slow. And it's actually the slowest it's been since 2010 if you take out the first few months of the pandemic. So it's the slowest it's been since the Great Recession recovery. So that's obviously cause for concern. I think the next few months will give us a better indication if we're truly on the way to a recession or if it was kind of just a blip. We hope that the markets in general agree that Trump always chickens out, and we hope that Trump continues to always chicken out so the economy can be more stable. Yeah, because if he hadn't been chickening out, the economy, I think we'd already be in a recession right now.
Total. And we're definitely pacing for a recession next year. It's interesting, though, because this is actually the data that the Fed would need to justify rate cuts because they, a big reason on how they do that is what the jobs reports are. So they want to give they want to make the access to money better when jobs are low so that people have more money to hire. So this is actually the information that probably Trump was wanting for that rate cut that he's been begging for. I found it really interesting. So the biggest gainer this month was healthcare, 31,000 jobs, but it was mainly offset by 15,000 federal government jobs getting fired and 6,000 oil jobs getting fired. And I want to talk about the oil one really quickly, just because I know about it. So you know this, but if new listeners don't know, I work at renewables, a lot to do with wind, which I know Trump hates. But when you work in offshore wind, you meet a lot of offshore oil and gas people because there's a lot of there's a lot of overlap between the skill set and the companies that do these projects. And one thing I don't think people realize is that oil projects are massively difficult and require a ton of steel because if you're making either an oil and gas platform or the giant rigs, they're really, really have massive supply chains, massive coordination, and they rely on subsidies a lot. They rely on a lot of transparency. So when these tariffs come around, especially these broader ones on just copper or steel or whatnot, they absolutely slaughter oil and gas projects. And it's not surprising me that they had a 6,000 job loss this last month. I don't think people realize A, how pro oil and gas the Biden administration was, and how bad tariffs are for oil and gas. So all energy is losing here, not just renewables, even oil, even if you're an oil guy. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. It doesn't even matter where you fall. Everyone should agree we need more energy. And regardless, Trump is not pro-American energy at all. Like at all. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I just thought that was interesting.
No, yeah, I think that's a great point. My only thought is with the way alternatives are looking, maybe you should look into a big oil job. It might change the podcast a little bit, but
Exxon's actually a great place to work. No, yeah, we're not going there yet. Not quite yet. And anyway, they're not hiring, they're firing.
True.
They don't even want me. Well, and speaking of energy, and this is something that made me smile but frown too, but made me smile because we talk about this on the show all the time. So this week, a clip of Trump talking saying, and he said this in this clip, he said, if something really bad happens, just blame AI. And you and I have been talking about this for weeks. AI is it can't defend itself, right? So if the tariffs on Penguin Islands, it's probably AI. Oh, that's wrong. Oh, it's AI. Oh, that photo's bad. It's probably AI. AI is the ultimate scapegoat for anything you don't want, whether it's an audio clip, whether it's a picture, whether it's bad research, bad reporting. And now we have the dude acknowledging that that's what they do. So I don't know what we're going to do about this, though, because, again, AI can't just go, what are you talking about? I didn't say that,
Right. Yeah. And It's so dumb. It came out of a conversation about a reporter asked him about a video of a plastic bag flying out of a window in the White House. And Trump basically said it has to be AI because all the windows are so secure that they would never be open to let a bag fly out. Yeah, but he literally said, if something bad happens, maybe I'll just blame AI. Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about the whole AI videos thing overall, I think, because we're not quite at the point where they're indistinguishable, but we're so close. We're already at the point where, for many of the older generation, perhaps on Facebook, they're definitely unable to distinguish between AI videos and not. But, I feel like we're, 1 or 2 years away from it being completely indistinguishable.
Especially for people like you and I who have a lot of audio clips they can digest. They can make an amazing AI video from us. Or at least a sound recording. So I say that jokingly, but also like seriously, it's for sure. I mean, think about how fast it's gone over the last couple of years. Think about how good ChatGPT and all these sites have gone. It's crazy. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I kind of feel like they continually post AI photos of Trump doing crazy shit to continue to blur their line, so that way, if a photo of Trump comes out that is crazy, they can just say that. But I don't know. I mean, so I'm going to have my friend Ivo, who is doing his PhD in Switzerland right now on super quantum physics. He's a genius. He's quantum physics and quantum computing and blah, blah, blah. He knows a lot about AI. So we're going to talk about AI. So we all learn a lot from that. But I don't know. I don't love the idea of the administration just vaguely blaming AI. I remember the Maha report citing pet stores for medicine things, and they said, "Oh, it's AI."
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. So they had an AI tech dinner this week. So they brought all the tech guys to the White House. You had Zuck there. You had the Google guys there. And they were all doing their kind of round table of kissing Trump's ass. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was the same as the cabinet meeting a couple weeks ago, last week. It's, oh my God, oh, you're incredible. Oh my God, what an honor. But what was really interesting is Zuck got caught on a hot mic admitting that he immediately just had lied. Did you see this, Rick?
Yeah, I did.
So I have the clip. It's a little hard to hear Zuck on the hot mic, but I think it's worth listening for the audience because it's a great clip. I want to play it really quick.
How much are you spending, would you say, over the next few years?
Oh, gosh. I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant. Sorry, I wasn't ready to do our for announcement.
He said I wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with.
Did you hear that? He goes, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what number you wanted to go with. So he just said right there, I just said shit. I don't know, dude. It's just, once again, though, I mean, what can we even, can we trust any words that come out of these people's mouths? I don't know.
Right. He could have said any number. I mean, so what was the number he gave? 600 billion or 800 billion?
600 billion.
600 over 2 years. I mean, he could have said 600 million and Trump would have said that's a big number. He could have said any amount and he would have go, yeah.
Any number.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you want me to say right there.
Dude, yeah, I don't know, dude. I just said shit. I wasn't ready for that. It's just I couldn't he have just said, I don't know, a lot of money yet. We haven't finalized the details. That would have been not a lie. You know what I mean? Zuckerberg is weird.
Yeah, and I know Zuckerberg has been on an alpha arc the past few years, but it's not really showing up when he's near Trump.
Remember when they went on the hot Zuck arc when he got the haircut and then he started doing surfing and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, Zuck's hot now.
Yeah, he started surfing with a broccoli cut and people thought he was cool.
Gen Z Zuck. Well, and he also is a huge fan of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue. Did you know that? He's like, I put it on everything. I love Sweet.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He's a big smoking meat guy. He did one time when Facebook introduced live streaming, he did a live stream from his house while he was smoking meats. And it's a great compilation of him being like, oh, yeah, I smoke the meats. I love to smoke meats. I'll smoke meat any day. I'll smoke it tomorrow. And he just keeps going on about how much he loves smoking meats and Sweet Baby Ray's. Fun fact about Sweet Baby Ray's. I was in a Sweet Baby Ray's commercial as a kid.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was tailgating with my dad at a Patriots game, and they came up to us, and they said, we're filming a commercial. Would you like to be in it? And I said, sure. And I was 6, 7 years old. and they gave me the bottle and just said, say something about how you like Sweet Baby Ray's. So I said, they put me on, I go, Sweet Baby Ray's, so sweet, so baby. That's what I said.
Wow.
That kept into the commercial.
That's great.
I was 7. Anyway, lastly, before we go to you, just another sign of Trump's pettiness and how corrupt he is. So under Biden, there was this new policy that got placed that if airlines got delayed or canceled and you had nothing to do with it, it wasn't weather, they just canceled their flight, they had to reimburse you, just average Joes, between $200 and $775 whenever the disruption was caused by the airline itself. Trump just removed that for no reason. And it's 100% because the Secretary of Transportation now that Trump has is, famous airline kind of executive. But just again, why would anyone actually do that? Like, you know what I mean? Why on earth, unless you were bought out by whatever lobbyist that you were trying to appease? But just another example when people go, oh, Trump is not above being in the pocket of companies. Really? Because why on earth would you ever do that?
Yeah, and it was actually a 3-pronged announcement that are all so bad. Like you said, it was getting rid of the plan announced under Biden that would provide cash compensation when there are delays. But then it also is changing the regulations for when there's cancellations. So it's making it less stringent. So there's more reasons an airline could cancel a flight without having to legally reimburse you. So it's not just delays, even cancellations. They're going to be less likely to reimburse people, which is crazy because you're paying for the flight and you're not getting a flight. But then the third thing is they're getting rid of the Biden regulations on disclosing hidden service fees. So everyone knows with Ticketmaster, but also with airlines, you think you're going to pay $100 for a ticket and then you get to the checkout and there's $35 in fees at the end. So
the worst. The worst. I hate that. Who likes
So it's getting rid of compensation for flight delays, for cancellations, and then regulations about disclosing hidden fees. They're all such common sense things that, like you said, it just has to be because they're in the pocket of the industry.
And it's just, if they would do this for the airlines and whatnot, wouldn't they just do this kind of thing for anyone? And I think that people forget all these things, right? Remember during the election, Trump said, if the oil companies give me $1 billion, I'll kill all of the renewables. And they did. I feel like people don't remember these things. This idea that Trump is above corruption and above making money, every single thing he does is for his own profit. So
right.
It always makes me laugh when you hear stuff like this because it's just so petty and so obviously not pro-American, and especially not pro-working American. But, well, that's the news this week. So, Rick, we got one more thing left on the docket, and that is...
It's time for Rick's Cultural Corner.
I will never not love that. I love that thing. That AI voice cracks me up every time.
Thank you. We have to name the voice, by the way.
Robot Diane.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane.
Robot Jessica. Yeah, thank you, Diane. That's Diane. She works here on the weekends, but that's it.
So I thought we'd talk about briefly the story of the Phillies Karen that went viral over the weekend. Did you see anything about this? The woman at the Phillies game?
I saw a headline, but I didn't click it. I'm a huge Phillies fan. But no, tell me what happened.
So on Friday during the Phillies game, center fielder Harrison Bader hit a home run. A group of fans went for the ball. And as always happens at baseball games, there's a skirmish of 6 people all going for the ball at once because it usually bounces. And then this man grabs the ball and then runs back to his seat and gives it to his son. I don't know how old his son was, probably 8 years old or something. His son was celebrating his birthday. And then this woman who is also in the skirmish just runs up to him and grabs him on the arm. And you can tell the dad jumped back, was legitimately frightened. And the woman starts screaming in his face, saying, "That's my ball. I had the ball. That's my ball. Give it back." And by the way, this woman is in her 40s, at least.
Classic.
Yeah, 40s, 50s. And she's just screaming, "Give it back, give it back." And at first he's like, "What? What are you even talking about?" And this is all on camera. It's on the broadcast, and then other people have cell phone videos from the crowd. And then she keeps yelling at him. So eventually he takes the ball from his son's hands and gives it back to her just to appease her. But then of course, goes viral. And so, like, she gets kicked out. The team, like, brings the young fan, like, a bag of all, like, signed gifts. And then because of how viral it went, like, the Phillies ended up having the fan, like, meet Bader, who hit the home run, and, like,
so
getting
it
a
works
signed
out for the
bat.
fan.
Yeah, so it all works out. Like, it ended up being probably the kid's best birthday ever after the worst birthday ever.
Which is good.
But people are calling it the Phillies Karen. She had short hair, which I don't think helps the stereotype
No.
of Karens. She had, like, short, but I don't know. I guess my question for you is, if you caught a ball at a baseball game, would you give it to a child?
My child or just a random child?
No, a child near you.
No. Like, no chance. I'm sorry.
You're like, even if it's my child, that kid's not touching it.
I'm wondering if I'd give it to my own kid. Well, you know me. I'm very flinchy. So if I caught that ball, that would be a pretty big accomplishment for me. I'd be pretty proud of myself. I'm not letting that thing go, man. I don't do anything like that. That'd be pretty awesome. I don't know. What would you do? Would you give it to a random kid?
So, like, this wasn't the first one. Like, a lot have went viral in recent years of adults catching a ball and then keeping it and, like, not giving it to children. Like, if they're in a skirmish and there's children nearby, like, it's seen as, like, the nice thing to, once you catch it, you look at it, you hand it to, like, the nearest young kid near you. And it's changed over the past, like, 10 years, I'd say. And I'm just speaking for baseball, but that's really become, like, the norm now. Like, it's kind of seen, like, it would be seen as, like, a social faux pas if you did not give it to a child near you. Like, you would be like Larry David or something. Like, you'd go viral on the Jumbotron. Like, who's this grumpy adult that didn't give it? But I don't know. I kind of feel like this situation with the Phillies Karen was obviously different because this woman never had the ball in the first place, and the guy that got the ball gave it to his son. So, like, she was completely out of line.
And there's a difference between the skirmish and catching it, right? Because I wouldn't, like, fight off a kid for the ball if it was skirmishing. You know what I mean? Like,
right, like, you're not even going for the,
No, if a ball falls, I'm running away from the ball. Like, I'm scared. But if I, like, catch the ball, like, it comes out. First of all, people don't realize baseballs are hit very fast, and that would kill my hand.
Yeah, like they're like 100 miles per hour off the bat.
Exactly. So that would be an incredibly impressive move by me. If I bare hand catch a baseball, like I'm feeling unbelievable about myself if I do that.
But then
I'm giving it away.
The question is, do I become a hero and give it to a nice child, or do I just become my own hero and hang it up in my house?
Rick, you're a lot more heroic than I'm not. Anyone who knows me knows moments. I would love to sit here and say I'd give it to the kid. I would love to. I know that's the right thing to do. Knowing me, in that moment, I'm pocketing that ball. I don't even like baseball that much.
I don't like baseball or children, but
I'm keeping the damn ball. I mean, if a little kid came up to me and was like, "Please, sir, can I have the ball?
It's my birthday."
I would be like, "All right, have the ball." But I'm not looking for a ball to give. Have you ever caught anything? Like, have you ever had any moment like that?
I'm trying to think. No, I don't think. Like, I've caught a foul ball, not caught, but, like, on a bounce at a Lowell Spinners game, but nobody's fighting you over that.
I also caught a ball off a Lowell Spinners game because, again, it was easy money because they only hit fouls at the Lowell Spinners. Are they even around anymore, the Lowell Spinners?
No, I wish.
Did they
still
go? Are they gone? Like, did they not make it?
Yeah, they're just not even a team. UMass Lowell plays at the stadium that they used to have.
Damn.
But the other thing, though, people do is, like, nowadays, like, memorabilia and autographs and everything are worth so much that, like, let's say it was, like, this dude's, like, 500th home run he ever hit. Like, that ball is worth a lot of money. So that's another reason you don't just want to give it to a random kid, too.
Yeah, kid. What is the kid won't even remember it? Oh, some stranger gave me this ball. No thanks.
Right.
I caught, this isn't a baseball, but when I was a kid, Paul Pierce flicked his headband into the crowd and I caught it.
Really?
Yeah, so I have an old Paul Pierce headband.
Game worn headband.
Oh yeah, he flicked it off and I grabbed it. I snagged it. And it's funny because obviously as a kid, I remember like heroics of me getting it, but probably everyone stepped away and let me catch it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have to do anything incredible, but in my memory, I like, was like basically Kenny Lofton out there, like just
Yeah.
making an incredible catch. But there's no way actually that's probably what happened. Probably every parent cleared away and like let me catch it out of sympathy. And it's funny, as a 31-year-old, I would now push the child out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm always worried about. They one of my things in baseball games in general. Like, I'm worried the ball's going to come my way. Those balls are terrifying to me. Like, they're fast and they would hurt you. If it hit you, it would hurt.
Yeah, I'm surprised more people don't get serious injuries, considering there are like 100 foul balls a game.
Exactly. Like, I think people have been pretty clear. Yeah, and you're right. And that's another thing. Like, I can't look at another ball. There's a lot of fouls out there. Like, you'll be fine. Would you rather, like, could you take the booing, though? Because if they had you on the Jumbotron, they would boo, and I feel like I couldn't take the booing. Like,
No, I couldn't take it. I mean, if it's tough. If you know it's super valuable, then you also got to be thinking like, well, if I give it to this kid and his parents are probably going to sell it to the team or to a third party.
a lot of people don't sign things anymore because of the aftermarket with things have gotten so crazy. I mean, the biggest one is Pokemon cards in general. Like, the Pokemon market has gone out of control. But, like, yeah, I mean, memorabilia is also on there. Do you have baseball cards as a kid that you've been, like, holding on to?
Yeah, I have a good amount that I need to go through to see if there's any like valuables in there.
I just did that a couple days ago. I have a Nolan Ryan card that apparently has some worth to it. So I have to set up an eBay store, the Lonely Liberal Collectibles.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, no, have you ever been Karen'd in general? Like, have you gotten Karen'd at an event?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think so. Trying to think. I mean, I have been yelled at by random people before.
Oh, yeah. I've seen you get yelled at by random people. You're an enemy to the people. You know me, I've get in so many situations. I'm the Karen. Oftentimes, I'm getting into fights all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm often the victim. I like to think of myself as kind of like a social Batman. Like, I'm helping people do the right thing.
Yeah, you're standing up for those without a voice.
Exactly. Like, why are you singing in line? That woman the other day, I didn't even tell you about this. This has happened to me in the past, but it happened again because I feel very strongly about this, and I'm willing to fight the good fight. I was in line at a coffee shop, and this woman in line, they were playing music in the background, and she was singing it so loudly. The song. Like, she was like acting like she was in her bathroom, just singing in the shower. And I was just like, what are you doing? like, calm down. And she's like, I can sing if I want to. And I was like, no, you can't. We're in public. And we got into a big fight, and the cashier was like, sir, leave her alone. She got mad at me. So I didn't get any laudits, but I think I did the right thing. I don't think you can sing in public. You can hum, and you can maybe mutter some words, but you can't sing it loudly in public. That's crazy. I stand by my decision.
Yeah, I stand by that, but I definitely would not have said anything. So I think maybe
You wouldn't have said anything?
No. Well, that's why you're like Larry David, because you will say something and you're kind of technically right, although social norms say you should not say anything.
What am I supposed to do? Just look at her and make eye roll?
Do
Like
some harmonies.
I'll just go, back in black. No, it wasn't back in black. I forget what it was, but she was singing it. I just feel like if you're in a line at a coffee shop, you shouldn't be singing.
No, it feels
no
like it's fishing for compliments. It reminds me of that Kristen Wiig skit on SNL where like somebody's playing piano at a party and she keeps saying like, oh, everybody wants me to sing. I don't want to sing, but if everyone wants, don't make me sing. Okay, I'll sing.
Okay.
Like she really wants someone to come up to her and be like, excuse me, ma'am, you have a beautiful voice. Has anybody ever told you that? But instead she gets you going, shut up.
I go like this. I go, all right, come on. She goes, what? I go, yeah, enough.
Cool it, Beyonce.
I go, we're in line here. I don't know why it's funny. When Hannah and I started to date, I was like to myself, like, I'm gonna cool it, And on our second date, we went to a Celtics game. it's a game. It's loud. I have a loud voice. I'm not unaware of that. And I'm talking to Hannah, and the guy next to me is with his mother. He's like a 50-year-old guy. And he goes, "Hey, can you quiet down? I'm trying to watch the game." And I look at him, and I'm like ready to like unload, like be an asshole. And he's with his mom. My brain just goes, "Oh, can you?" I'm thinking of all these horrible things. And I kept it together because I didn't want Hannah to see me look so nasty. You know what I mean? Because it's a date. I want to look like I'm a higher role of that, but I also don't want to look like a wuss, right? So I'm like, I try to do like, I went like, "Oh, come on," like, "Okay, buddy, relax." And then I turned around to like the middle ground because you don't want to look weak, but you also don't want to look like Larry David fully. So I did that, but it was like the universe was testing me, and here we are, we're getting married. So I've been trying to control this, but yeah, I was at freaking a coffee place and I just couldn't help I was alone. If Hannah was there, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, sports games in general are like ripe for these moments because you have like adrenaline and people fired up. Remember, we saw those two guys fight over Bailey Zappi at a Patriots game a few years ago because Mac Jones was struggling hard, so people started chanting, "Bring in Zappi," the backup quarterback, and then one guy like next to us started saying like, "Fuck you, we ride or die Mac Jones," and then these two guys started fighting, and then they left the seats to go fight.
Yeah, they went and had a physical fight. I forgot about that. That's true. And we were like, "Oh," we were like right in between them.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, thank you, Rick. This is a lot of fun. We're gonna watch some football today. Also, yeah, like the liberals who watch football hashtag group. We're like a Facebook support group, I guess, but maybe it's more than I think. I can't imagine Roger Goodell is a liberal.
No.
No. And Trump has a weird relationship with the NFL. I feel like I don't know what. So they've banned the rainbow flags now. They're not doing the rainbow uniforms anymore, or the rainbow cleats or whatever. They banned that. That's definitely a Trump thing. Yeah. So I don't know. The NFL is a disgusting organization that if their product wasn't literal crack, I would be more tempted to not participate, but I like it too much. But anyway, all right, man. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
I'll see you next week, dude. And that's our show, folks. Thank you so much for joining us, listening to this show. Really love having you here. If you like the show, please give it a 5-star review, either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. It really does help, and I really appreciate it if you do it. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And let me know what you think. Give it a comment or send us an email at thelonelyliberalpodcast@gmail.com. I love getting all those. And yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday with another show. I think I'm going to be joined with Eric. I'm not definitely sure, but it's seeming like that, which was really cool. So looking forward to that. And yeah, have a great rest of your week, guys. I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.